So this is a new series, the spirituality of masculine and... Oh, Marlene. Well, eventually I'm going to get this title out. We've got the spirituality of masculine and feminine energy. It's a good title. I'm not sure what it really means, but I want to talk about masculine and feminine energy. That's what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks. So... what I'd like is if we come out of each week of this series being more aware of the world that we live in. And what I want us to be aware of is not only the world that we live in outside of ourselves, but also the world that we live in as in inside of ourselves, the world which we really live in. And the reason why we're going to talk about masculine and feminine energy is because what we're going to find is that everything in this world is masculine and feminine. Everything is split down the masculine and feminine line, and everything is made up of masculine and feminine. In order to go there, though, we need to understand the source of everything. So the source in our tradition and in Kabbalah, the source is a united entity that is so united with itself that it is one. So it's not made up of many parts. That's why we don't really use the term united to describe the infinite, because united means many things that are a part of a one. They are united. So united by definition means that there are multiple parts. When we talk about the essence and when we talk about the very, very beginning, when we talk about the source, we are talking about a unified singular entity that has no parts. It just is. And we can call that the Ein Sof, which is the infinite, which is not 100% a correct name. And what you'll find in most Kabbalistic writings is that it gets called Etzem. Etzem is the essence. And the essence is a nice nebulous word. What does essence mean? It doesn't mean anything. If you think about it, essence. Essence means nothing. Essence is not even the correct translation for the word etzem, because when we talk about etzem, when we talk about essence of something, we're talking about the core of it, and around the core there is something wrapped around it, right? When you have the essence of something, when you get to the essence of an apple, you've gone past the skin, you've gone past the outer layers, you've gone past the flesh, you've gone past the seeds, into the seed. So all that's not part of the essence. Etzem is not just the thing that lies at the heart of everything, but the etzem is, in truth, everything is in the etzem. So the etzem is everything. I can't think of an English word to really translate the word etzem. I can't really find an English word that defines what we would call Hashem, God, the infinite. The reason why I don't like translating it as God is because God automatically connotes and conjures up some sort of Christian idea or some other religious idea, so it already has definitions thanks to Hollywood, thanks to the books that you've read, thanks to whatever. So I don't like using the word God. I'm going to use the word Hashem for most of the series, but when I say Hashem, I'm talking about the infinite being that is everything, and that everything is a part of, and it is non-defined. That is the source of everything. In the last series that we did, we looked at how everything that we live in, the world that we live in, came into being, and what is its relationship with this non-divisible, essential everything, to a point that we get to something that is very non-essential, the world that we live in. That was the last series. It was called Seder Hishtalshelus, the gradation from one stage to the next, the evolution of spiritual energy until it becomes a physical block. We're going to draw a bit on that, but if you weren't here, don't worry. I'll touch on those ideas. It's not so important for this series. But what you need to know is that at the very essence of everything, there is a non-divisible, completely united being. And it's not really at the core, it's actually surrounds. It surrounds everything, and it fills everything. So there is nothing besides it. Even in this present moment, there is nothing besides it, but we're not conscious of it, so let's just ignore it, because life's simpler that way. Imagine you lived life realizing you're part of something meaningful. It'd be so hard to make mistakes, it'd be so hard to wrong other people. When you wrong someone else, you're wronging the universe. Who wants to think like that? So let's Let's just discount all that. It makes life a lot more relative. We can justify our pleasures. It's much easier. When we move beyond the unified state, and I'm going to be talking chronologically, not because it is chronological, but because that's the way we speak. We speak chronologically even about things in the present. I'll say, in the beginning, and I use this metaphor a lot, in the beginning there was light. Then the light passes through the light bulb, the glass, which passes through the light fitting, that passes through the atmosphere, that passes through my the edge of my eye that hits the center of my eye. So there's this chronology, but it's happening every moment. It's more like top-down rather than lateral. So the first state that I want you to be aware of is this non-divisible entity. The next is a unified entity. A unified entity means that there are many parts, but they are completely unified. And because they're unified, they're one. In order for something to be truly one, if it's made up of many parts, then those parts need to be completely without ego, without any self-awareness. As soon as there is a self-awareness, one is not unified. They are coexisting, but not completely one. So when you look at a jigsaw puzzle, each puzzle piece is an entity unto itself and exists within itself and is willing to be a part of a whole. So if you hold the jigsaw puzzle back, you'll see a beautiful image. But once you start actually looking at the jigsaw puzzle, you'll notice that there are many parts. But no part of the jigsaw puzzle will ever fight against another piece of the jigsaw puzzle, right? You want to be here, I want you to be here because you make me look beautiful. You make me, what does a jigsaw puzzle missing one piece look like? Oh, even if you're not OCD, it looks terrible. Finally we can all tap into what some people struggle with every moment, day by day. It looks terrible. So every other part of the puzzle wants the puzzle piece to be there because it makes it feel better. So it's a recognition that I am nothing without you. That's a unified makeup of many parts. It's so incredible because if you ask any puzzle piece, what are you? It will say, I'm just a blotch. I'm nothing. Don't ask me what I am. Because a puzzle piece on its own really is a blotch. It's not a house. It's not a tree. It's not even a petal. It's just a puzzle piece. And the puzzle piece in a unified system is going to say, I am nothing. I am the puzzle, but only when I am within the puzzle. If I'm not in the puzzle, it's not worth me existing. It's an incredible idea. Think about it. Do you even know people like this? Angels aren't even quite like this. Angels are similar to this idea in Jewish spirituality. Angels are puzzle pieces. They're here to deliver a message. And they recognize that they are nothing without the system in which they exist. But in truth, they don't even want to be. So they're very similar to what we're talking about. So we've got this unified system of pieces. I've skipped a whole lot of stages between because that was the last series. I just want to talk about some principal ideas. Then you have a relationship of where you've got individuals that can coexist. So I would like to call that a neighborhood, a community. What's a community? So a community is a collection of people, and all these people play a role in each other's lives, and they're all very dependent on each other, but they're also extremely independent from one another. So everyone goes shopping at the baker. Everyone goes to the baker. In the morning, we go to the baker, we go, it's like Beauty and the Beast. Oh, good morning, Mr. Baker, goodbye. So anyway, I'm not going to sing it for you now, probably because I don't know it, but the excuses aren't important. So the bell goes to the bakery. Hello, Mr. Baker, buys the bread. Goes to the fruiterer. Hello, Mr. Fruiterer. You can tell this is from a 1700s story. Everyone's a mister. The misters are all doing the shopping and the misters are doing the selling. That's, I suppose, what this series is about, understanding why that is and whether that's the correct way. And the community are many functions that all provide to the community. The shopper gives money, the shopkeeper provides produce. It's this perfect thing. You've got your religious minister, you've got your builder, you've got your plumber, you've got your electrician, you've got your teacher, you've got the kids, you've got the old people, you've got the nurses, you've got the doctors. It's this beautiful conglomerate. They all come together really, really well. But if you are the bricklayer and you walk into the nurse's house and say, I like that bed, I'm going to sleep on it, the nurse is going to say, no, you're not. This is my bed. I respect you for being a bricklayer. I understand the role you play in my society. My society would not be as balanced without you, but you're not sleeping in my bed. You go to your own house. So what we've got here is coexistence. Not just coexistence, but actually partnership. Everyone wants to work together. Everyone wants each other there, but everyone wants each other there as long as nobody steps on them. So what we've got is displacement. The jigsaw puzzle, the puzzle piece says, I don't care where I go, as long as it makes the puzzle good. Put me in the corner says put me in the middle. By definition, the corner is going to be in the corner. But not because the corner says I am a corner, but because the corner says if that's where the puzzle creator put me, that's where I'm going to be. I'm not even a pedal. I'm just a piece that's here to project a much larger image. And within me, you can find the whole puzzle. The society is a loving society, but it's a society made up of independent beings. That is already a problematic state. However, we don't notice the problem because everyone's getting along just fine. There is a parallel universe to that, where it's exactly the same, but nobody sees themselves as members of society. Each one sees themselves as their own individual that's here to protect and preserve their own self. And therefore you have a bricklayer, and you have a nurse, and you have a doctor, and you have a school teacher, and you have a school child, but nobody gets along. Nobody works together. It's each to their own. Sometimes it works because it just works, and very often it doesn't work. And we could end the class tonight right here and ask, well, what's the world that we live in? Is it a complementary society or is it an egocentric society? And we as a world fluctuate between the two. One thing's for sure, we're not a puzzle. We're not puzzle pieces. Nor are we the level above a puzzle piece, which is a unified whole to the point that there are no delineations of pieces. And we're definitely not a singular entity. Because the fact that I can say we means we're not singular. We means there's you, there's me. We could only be singular if we spoke in the single. But if I speak in the singular, now I'm excluding you. It's I to the exclusion of you. So this whole idea of the singular doesn't really exist practically in our world. At least not on the surface. Now let's look at what we are told. By the way, that narrative you can find in everything. Let's look at how we're told about the origins of mankind. Now, by the way, I need you to be aware that there is this unified version and then the singular version, that singular entity that lies above the unified. You know, there are other great philosophies of the world. You've all heard of the yin and the yang, yes? The yin and the yang. I was having a discussion recently with a lady, a really, really special woman who comes here from time to time. And we were talking about masculine, feminine energy and black and white. And she's like, oh, you know, Menachem, you'd really enjoy reading more about the yin and the yang. I said, oh, would I now? She said, yeah. So she starts talking to me. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're talking about the Sefirot, which we're going to talk about more in detail next week, how the Sefirot split into masculine and feminine energies. And she's like, well, and it's complementary, and you can find a bit of everything in everything else. She goes, that's the dot, and the yin, the yang, and the black and the white, da 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 da. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. That whole subject matter does not fall into the unified. Yin and the yang means, by definition, there are dual existences within the whole, within the one. But I'm talking about a level above that where there is no dual existence. There is only one. You'll find a lot of interesting ideas. They're not exactly complementary, as in they don't complement one another. But these ideas aren't completely unique to our spiritual system. You'll find these in a lot of ancient philosophies, in Taoist teaching, although even in Taoism, there's Buddhist Taoism, there's philosophical, non-religious Taoism. You get a lot of different ideas. But these ideas which might sound, oh, masculine, feminine, dual, none of that plays into the higher state. This idea, again, of a higher state of singular entity may exist elsewhere, but I just need you to be, basically, I want you just to drop anything you know. Just be an open sponge to something new, and then at the end of this class, unify it and make your own cholent out of it. You know what a cholent is? A cholent is, on Shabbat I was telling some people what cholent is. I said cholent is best translated as Jew stew. I said Jew stew? They thought I was being like I don't know, racist or something. I was like, Jew stew. It's a stew that Jews eat. It's a stew that we eat on Shabbos. It's got beans, it's got barley, it's got potatoes, it's got meat, it's got onions, it's got sauce. I don't know. It's cooked for 24, 25 hours. And it forms its own coagulated entity of cholent. And the contemporary mystics often would refer to cholent as soul food. If you eat cholent on Shabbat, if you eat this type of stew, when it's hot on a Saturday, it feeds the soul. I can explain it, but not now. It's got nothing to do with the beans or the potatoes or the ingredients. It could be any hot food, provided it was turned on before Saturday, on Friday afternoon, Friday morning, with the intention that it should be eaten on Saturday, hot. Anyway, not for now. So we don't really relate to this unified, to this singular entity. And the truth is, you don't really need to know about it for the rest of this series, except that it is the etzem. It lies within everything. Why do you need to know that? Because not only are we at our core unified with one another on some spiritual level, but we are so unified that we are singular. There are 5 levels to the soul. The nefesh, which is the base level of the soul, which makes us alive. It's who we are. It's not who we are personality-wise. It's who we are as a living being. One day you're living, one day you're dead. It's because your nefesh left. Your nefesh is no longer in the guf. Your soul is no longer in the body. Nefesh is life. Where is your nefesh? It's through your whole body. It runs through your blood. It runs in your skin. It's at the core of your bones. Your nefesh is your spirit. Then we have our ruach. The ruach is the part of our soul which allows us to experience emotion. It allows us to experience life as a feeling. It's what makes us more than a rock. A rock has a nefesh. A rock exists. But a rock doesn't feel. The nefesh allows us to feel. The neshama allows us to have intellectual capacity. Animals feel. Animals have instincts. Animals have a brain, but ruach has nothing to do with your brain. It's to do with the way you experience life and the way you automatically respond to life. I feel this is no good. I feel that. Of course, the feeling comes from the brain. Not feelings don't come from your heart. Blood comes from your heart, but you feel it in your heart because that's where you feel feelings, right? When you feel anxious, you don't feel it here, even though this is where anxiety takes place. You feel it over here. When you feel happy or you feel nervous, it's somewhere between your belly button and your neck. You never go, feeling a bit nervous about all this. You never go, I've got butterflies in my scalp. If you've got butterflies in your scalp, it's probably because you've eaten too much chili and you're starting to, that's the only time. Neshama is the level of soul that allows us to have cognitive understanding, an ability to ascribe meaning and value to things around us, within us. It allows us to string a story together of abstract concepts. Animals don't do this. Plants definitely don't do this. And inanimate objects definitely don't do this. This is a human capacity. Then we've got our chai. Chai means life. It's the 4th level of our soul. It's not within us, but it's outside of us. It surrounds us and fills us at the same time, but it's not at all contained by the body. It is already our super consciousness. It's almost like a photosynthesis that takes place in how our soul radiates into us. And that's where the chai of everything it becomes very united. Chais don't displace other chais. No worries. But Yechida is the 5th level of soul. Now, I think yoga has finished, so I'm going to ask David, because I think David's the only one, are you able to turn it on to fan or just something a little cooler so we don't all expire into our high state of soul? Or, we're not doing the out-of-body experience series here. We're here doing masculine, feminine energy, so we don't need to die tonight. Yechida is yachid, one, singular. Yochid is the point at which our souls, and it's not just our souls, it's the soul of everything, is so united that it is one. It's not that we are a jigsaw puzzle. If you see humanity as a jigsaw puzzle, you're trivializing us. We are so much more than that. We are Yochid. Why do you need to know that? Because even though it's so inaccessible to the human being, nevertheless, if you're aware that it exists, you've got something to strive for. To strive to living a conscious life, I know this makes no sense, to strive to live a conscious life at which we discover the oneness of everything, of ourselves with everything and everything with ourselves, not as a jigsaw puzzle, but as a singular entity. The goal is to hold on to consciousness while we do that. You say that's impossible because consciousness by definition is my awareness. Very good. Now you've got the purpose and the goal of what Judaism is. To allow the infinite and the finite to exist in a single space. To allow the impossible to become a reality. That's what we're striving for. If that's not what you were taught in Hebrew school, sue them. Ask for your money back. So we need to know this just so we understand that the abstract is not an impossibility, but it's something we can dream for. Now, it says, Adam, that mankind was created b'tselem Elokim. So I've just spoken a lot about souls and the 5 layers of souls. And I want to talk about this concept which we call God. What is God? God is an English word, G-O-D. It's a name. What's Allah? Allah is a name. What is Adonai? It's a name. It's a generic name given to the infinite. Whatever religion you've got, if it has an infinite being, it's got some sort of generic name that can't be described. It's not allowed to be described. It shouldn't even be pronounced properly because it's such a hallowed word of which it represents something so much more than a word. But then again, if you look in the Torah, if you look in the Bible, you'll find many names of God. And it's not because God has many faces and many characteristics, but rather the infinite has finite ways of interacting with this world, and each of those interaction styles has a name. So when we talk about the names of Hashem, we're not saying that, well, all his buddies call him God, but you can call him buddy or you. It's not that. There is no name. But there are names for the recognition of the interplay between the infinite and the finite, and those have names. So you've got Elokeinu, you've got Adonai, you've got Shakai, you've got Havaya, you've got Elokim, all different names. We say it in prayer, we have it in the Bible. In the Bible it's always, and God said, and God said. But if you look in Hebrew, you're going to get a whole lot of different God names. So much cooler in Hebrew. By the way, if you ever read something in English and you go, just doesn't turn me on, it's like watching a Hollywood remake of Romeo and Juliet as some stupid chick flick. You know, gee, Shakespeare was an idiot. No, he wasn't. The directors that made this movie in the 90s, they're idiots. Romeo and Juliet in the 21st century. Pretty much all you've got are 2 names. Nothing else is the same. So English, which is at best, and I'm not making fun of English, it's just what English is a bastardized language. It's picked a whole lot from other languages, and it's just brought it together. It's a very inaccurate language. It's a very imprecise language. And what we're doing is we're taking a very precise language, which is Hebrew. Ancient languages are very precise. In that they don't really have as much borrowed from each other. They've got their own evolution. And what we're saying is, right, we're going to translate poetry from a very precise language into an imprecise language which derives from a culture that has nothing to do with the origins of the culture of another language. So it'd be like, right, I'm going to start translating American Indian cultural themes into English. Can't do it, because English by definition is an Anglo language. It's a language that English is a language which comes from a part of the world that didn't have the spirituality of the American Indians. So you can't say, oh, this is what the American Indians mean. You can't describe in essence what the American Indians said if you're an Englishman. Just as American Indians can't translate English stuff into Cherokee or whatever the language is, because they don't have sophisticated, posh, obnoxious, fake behavior tea. They don't do that. They're more open. It's like saying to an Italian, can you just... I'm going to be extremely racist. It's like being, whatever, like talking to a Mediterranean type person and saying, why don't you pretend to be Russian for the day? They can't do it. If you're like all flowy and all that, you can't say, and this is how the closed people of the world do it. You can describe it, you can relate to it, you can imitate it, but you'll never be it. Because you can't use one culture to explain another culture, and language is the same. So whenever you read the Bible, whenever you read the prayer book, you get God, 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 God. You'll be like, this guy is pretty boring. It's got this really weird name, God, and it tells me nothing. But if you're reading it in the Hebrew, you get Elohim, you get Elokeinu, you get Havaya, you get Adonai, you get these different names which tell me about the interplay, this relationship in this moment. What we find in Genesis is Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'asaretz. In the beginning, Elokim created the heavens and the earth. Elokim, right, we must be talking about creation. We're now talking about the infinite as it relates to the finite. Elokim is the name of the energy when it becomes finited. When the infinite becomes finite, it's called Elokim. You want to know Elokim? Look around the room. You've got Elokim everywhere. The walls are Elokim. The air is Elokim. I'm Elokim. You're Elokim. This phone is Elokim. All the people on Facebook are Elokim. Everything's Elokim. Everything is structured. Everything has its place. Everything is organized. You want to start looking for the infinite within the finite? There are hints of it. We look at the precision of the universe. We look at how wonderful the universe is. You begin to, people often say, where's God? Go outside, look at the sky, there's God. Go outside into a forest, look at the grass, there's God. Look at a squirrel, there's God. Look at the zoo, there's God. Just go to any natural scene and look at how incredibly perfect, from the microcosm to the macro, that scene is, and you go, wow. What are the chances of that having been the way it is? I get excited by Earth, personally. I get very excited by planet Earth. Planet Earth is in the Goldilocks zone. If it would be slightly more to this side or slightly more to that side, it would either freeze over or be too hot to sustain life. Yeah, maybe it's by chance. I prefer to say it's by bloody accurate planning. Either way, it doesn't matter. I get inspired by that. You don't need to start looking for interstellar, out-of-body whatevers in order to discover God. You've got to just open your eyes and allow yourself to see it. Allow yourself to see the grass growing. Allow yourself to see the water flowing. And be amazed by the system that is the ecosystem, that is the universe, that is the solar system, that is the universe. Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning God created. Es Shemayim ve'asaretz, the heaven and the earth. And then it says, Nase Adam b'tzameinu, let us form man in our image, kidmoseinu, the way we look. So mankind is created in the image. What is mankind at the beginning? Mankind at the beginning is neither male or female. Mankind at the beginning, David, is it for sure off, the heating? Do you mind, please? I get excited. I'm like holding myself back because I don't want to... Nase Adam b'tzameinu kidmoseinu, let us make man in our image. What is the human that God makes? It is neither male or a female. Nor is it a hermaphrodite. A hermaphrodite is something that is both male and female, but this was not it. This was not an androgynous creature. This was far beyond that. This was an entity that was both masculine and feminine. I don't know whether it was asexual. I don't know, because it does. An androgynous has both male and female parts, but I'm not sure but this was an entity that was both male and female all the way to its core.
I understood that's what androgyny
Is it? An androgynous thinks both as a male and as a female, and I know physically and it has.
Christian, I believe in the Zohar.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy to go with it. If that's literally what an androgynous is, we'll go with it. Yeah, that's my point. It was one. Don't get caught up in my inability to speak English. It was one. It was one. It is this incredible entity, and then it gets separated into man and woman. In the beginning, Bereshis, in the beginning. So what is before beginning? There's no Elokim before beginning. Elokim is a unified name of existence, of where everything has its place. Elohim is the name of the jigsaw puzzle. Everything is unified because everything has its place and everything accepts itself. Prior to that, there is nothing. There is only everything. The everything is one. Within the Elohim, within the jigsaw puzzle, there is a piece. And the piece represents the everything. It is both male and female. It is both masculine and feminine. It is a united form of not just coexistence. It will move into a state of coexistence. It is a singular existence. And then it gets split. Now, this is the narrative of how the energy moved from the infinite into the finite. In the beginning, there was an infinite energy, and the infinite energy allowed for a space for particular aspects of its energy to come to the fore, especially 10. Those would become the 10 Sefirot, as we'll learn next week, the 10 primary energies that are found within everything. And we're going to find masculine and feminine within them, but that's not for tonight. And those 10 energies work together and coexisted. And also, as they expressed themselves and as they received, they also didn't work together. And as a result, they don't coexist. So we're talking chronologically, but not really. And they don't work together, and in their not working, they lead to a catastrophic change in the spiritual makeup of the universe, not the physical universe, of the spiritual, which leads to a cycle of events that eventually leads to physicality. I'm just glazing over it because it's not important for now. What is important is that we had a unified, then we had a singular, which within it there was unified. Within that, the unified also did not unify itself and did not allow the other entities to coexist. Everything wanted to be the I. Everything wanted to absorb the infinite energy. And when everything tries absorbing infinite energy, as soon as there's an everything, you've got a finite. So the finite things don't work together and they explode, to use a metaphor. There's no explosion, but they explode, to use a metaphor. So that leads to the possibility of things working together. When something breaks, you've got shards. Those shards can be put together, right? You can rebuild something that's broken. But what if those shards are left lying around for a while? So the weather takes a toll on it, or they grate against each other, they become less smooth, and what if they've got living organisms within them? They start growing, and they're growing with deformities. They'll never come back together. They will remain shards. They will remain broken pieces that will never be able to come back together. But in potential, you've also got pieces that can come back together. So this is the world we live in. It's a world in which there is both perfection as well as eternal imperfection. Mankind is a product of perfection, but it is a finite product. And then mankind is split into masculine and feminine. In order for mankind to continue, what must it do? It must come together with each other. Mankind must come together in order to biologically reproduce. If the masculine and the feminine don't come together, there is no continuation of the human race. But they are no longer unified. They are coexisting. They can coexist in a selfish way, or they can coexist in a selfless way. So let's say marriage. What is marriage? Marriage is where two people say to each other, I am nothing without you. Each one says, I am nothing without you. I can't live another day without you. Because if you think about it, I always tell this to couples. Like, couples come to me, they want me to marry them off. And I remind them that what they're about to do is the dumbest thing they could possibly do. Enter into a life of sharing till the day they die. So in the beginning, it's going to be fun. You know, it's fun. It's a bit of intimacy, kissing, food, fun. But, you know, how long can that last for? I can't answer that. But, you know, after a while, you want to change, get some variety, maybe trade someone in here, maybe, you know, move on. You know, why commit? Why not just say, for now it's working, let's live together? Because marriage is the point of where you say, this isn't about the fun, it's not about the lust, it's not about the pleasure, it's that I feel incomplete when you're not around. And when you're here, I don't feel like you're stepping on my toes. I don't feel like you're using up my blanket. I don't feel like you're breathing the air of my apartment. I feel that I have a reason to be here. So it's coexistence with love. Then you can get the coexistence of convenience. He had 3 drinks, she had 2 drinks, the lights were flashing, she looks gorgeous, he looks attractive. In this moment, each one can provide what the other one is looking for, but neither of them are looking for anything within the other. They're looking for something within themselves that the other can provide. That's coexistence, and it's nice coexistence. No one's getting hurt. No one's getting hurt, but you wouldn't say anyone's being complimented here. That is like a coexistence of where it's just, it's like our community that I spoke about before. The nurse says, don't sleep in my bed. The bricklayer says, I'll build your house. Please don't come near me. Everyone's working together, and it's just not falling apart. And then you get the opposite of coexistence. She looks pretty. He thinks he's attractive. She's not really responding. So he drops a drug in her drink. She blanks out for 8 hours. He does what he needs. So that's nobody dies. Nobody dies. Okay, so the world hasn't been destroyed physically, but the world's pretty much been destroyed in that moment. Because what happened there is so self-centered to the destruction of an other. So we've got 3 examples. He looks cute, she looks cute, they swap numbers and they end up discovering that they can't live without each other. Then you get he looks cute, she looks cute because of the dark lights, the flashing lights and a bit of alcohol, and they consent to coming together. And then you get she looks cute, I'm going to drop a pill into her drink and do what I need. We've got 3 different worlds, 3 different ways of existing. When man and woman are in this world, there are a number of ways in which the proverbial man and the proverbial woman comes together. And that's up to the man and woman to decide. Now, where does the proverbial man and the proverbial woman get their energy from to behave the way they do? They get that from all the other masculine and feminine. The human masculine and the human feminine gets its energy from the masculine and feminine from which they derive from. Not only that, but every masculine and feminine in this world gets its energy from the exact same source, from the source of the masculine and the source of the feminine. There is a name of Hashem, Kibiyah Tzurei Lomim, Yud and Hey. It's the name of Hashem. Yud, it's a little dot, and Hey. You know what a Hey looks like? It's like a right angle with a hanging line under it. Ish is the Hebrew word for man. Isha is the Hebrew word for woman. Ish is spelled Aleph Yud Shin. Isha is spelled Aleph Shin Hey. The difference, they both have Aleph and Shin. The Hebrew word Aleph and Shin is Aish. What does Aish mean? Fire, light, energy. The energy is there. What is the difference? One holds the Yud, one holds the Hey. Ish is man. The letter Yud is a masculine letter. It's small, it's a dot. It represents a seminal drop. Semen is nothing. Where do babies come from? One like nano, gallo, whatever liter of DNA. It's like some, we are so, what do we contribute to this race? Like something that you can't even measure with a kitchen scale. That's our contribution to the world. Thank you. Thank you. Rocha, you owe me. I have made a massive commitment. I've given that to society. I'm a giving masculine. And what is a woman? What is Isha? Woman is a Hey. It's a developing letter. It's got a large right angle. It's got a separate small piece. It's got openings. It's growing. It's developmental. When you bring the Aish of love together, what do you end up with? Yah, Hashem, the infinite. The infinite can only be found when the Ish and the Isha come together, when there is the unification of the masculine and feminine. So Elokim is the name of the system that is nature, that is the world that we live in, But within it, we need to reveal the ka. We need to reveal the singular entity. So what do we discover? That we don't just come from the singular entity, but within ourselves is where we find the singular entity. The only way to do that is through unification with the other. So really what this series is going to be a bit about are the different forms of unification, not just between people, but unification of the self. The yud is this seminal drop. The hey is this developmental shape. The yud, where does semen come from? It comes from giving. The masculine gives, the masculine produces, the masculine emits the semen. Where do babies come from? It comes from a hey. The woman receives the semen. Masculine is giving. Feminine is receiving. This has nothing to do with men and women. Let me just give you the quick caveat. Everything that we know about men and women is some deranged Victorian invention. You know, what the world looks at men and women is something that's been in play for a couple hundred years, and it's built on something that is 1800 years or 300 years. You know, if you look, post-industrial revolution is where things go awfully weird, because before that, men were workers and women were homemakers. Why? Because most men were stronger, so they did the strong labor, they carried wood, they built buildings, they built their own homes. What were women? They were nurturers. No one really fetched about it. You don't find too much women's lib in the 1500s, partially because they were oppressed, so you wouldn't want to. But there's also not necessarily the same reason for women's lib in the 1500s. There are gross injustices to how women are treated, and that's because of the chauvinistic society. But let's say they weren't chauvinists. Would it have been the same as post-industrial revolution? In post-industrial revolution, with the mechanization of industry, suddenly men aren't chopping wood and building houses. They're pressing buttons, and the buttons are doing it. Machines are doing it. Who presses a button better, men or women? Come on. Exactly, it makes no difference. Who codes better, men or women, in today's day and age? Who's better coding a website? Women or men? Women or men? Makes no difference. Either they've got movement in their fingers or they don't. I don't recall gender being something that describes how your fingers move. Anyone can code. But if you're a man, you're going to get the job. And if you're a woman, you're not going to get a job. I can tell you one basic reason why people wouldn't employ a woman. Probably going to get pregnant, then we're going to have to find someone else to replace them. There's actually no other logical reason to employ a man over a woman, which means men are not better than women, and yet men seem to command many of the jobs that are available. And if you interview a man or a woman, you tend towards the man unless you want to demonstrate that you've got an egalitarian workplace. I'm going to employ a woman, not because she's a woman, but because she's a woman. Because I want to show what a good company I am. I've got women working here. There's this predisposition and there's this tendency of men to select the man. And when the work becomes relatively equalized, why should a man do it ahead of a woman? So a man gets to go to work. Sorry, dear, can't take the kids to school. Got to go to work. I'm a lawyer. I'm a stockbroker. I'm a doctor. I'm a nurse. You'll have to take the kids to school. I've got important work to do in this world. So off the man goes. Sorry, dear, got a Christmas party this weekend. Can't be around. Work. Got to be there. Big Easter party. Got to be there. Lots of manly stuff that needs to be done. Not because he's a man, but because he works. She, on the other hand, has to look after the babies. Why? Because she doesn't work. She doesn't get a kratzmach. She doesn't get an Easter, doesn't get these things because she's not in the workplace. So as the men continue to work, the work isn't as hard as it used to be. And so you've got a whole lot of women who are like, hang on. I know this whole thing, you call me the nurturer, blah, 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 blah. But you seem to be actually getting a better quality life than I do. I don't get days off. I don't get this. You do. Plus, the work that you're doing is not exactly suited to your physique any more than it is to mine. And so what we've got now in the world is a situation of where men are doing work that really, most work that exists in the workplace in the Western world could be done by a man or a woman. But it gets taken by the men. It's better to be a man in this world. If you disagree with that, I'd love to hear why. It's much better to be a man. Much more opportunity, much more fun. Classically, 1 versus 1. Say more than a prayer. Bring sacrifices of thanks. But really, if you think about it, the women have been dudded since the Industrial Revolution. Now, the truth is the women were dudded before that as well, but that was because they were women. So society automatically looked down on a woman, but that's because of a dominant masculine behavior that has evolved through many societies as one society leads into the next society. But I'm not really going to get into that because tonight's not about that. But in the spirituality, the masculine energy is to produce and the feminine energy is to receive. Whether you're a male or a female makes no difference. These are the energies, and you're going to see this everywhere. This has nothing to do with men and women. Firstly, God, you'll notice, is always described as He. Hashem is He. And there's a very simple reason why Hashem is He and not she. Sometimes Hashem is she, by the way. When Hashem is described as a manifest existence within the universe, i.e. the Shekhinah, it's feminine. What guided the Jewish people through the desert, if you look at the story, it's the Shekhinah. It's feminine. There was a presence. There was an entity that could be related to. There was a sense. What do we have every Friday night? What do we welcome into our lives? The Shabbat, which is a feminine term, but what do we always call it? Shabbat Malka, the Shabbat Queen. It's the description of God as a feminine. So when we say the Shabbos Queen, it's not the Shabbos Queen, some beautiful woman. Shabbos Queen is God as a feminine. So God is sometimes feminine, but more often than not, you'll find God is masculine. And when God is masculine, you'll always find that something is in play. When God does something, there is something that is getting done too. There is a receiver of the energy. And therefore, God is the contributor, hence it is a He. And who is the she in the Torah? The people. People are always she. We are the feminine. So in this relationship of giving and receiving, why? Because the world receives the energy to exist. So therefore the world, the olam, the universe is feminine. God is a masculine, not because God is male, not because men are better, because in this relationship, when you're looking for a different relationship, you find God becomes feminine. Energy and appliances. Energy is masculine and the appliances are feminine. Plugs and sockets. The plug is masculine. The socket is feminine, even though that's not really how it works. But we use masculine and feminine terms. If you're an electrician, there are masculine and feminine terms, even though it's actually the socket that gives the power. It's kind of messed up. Really, if we would design it again, what we should do is we should make sockets be 3 prongs sticking out of the wall, and a plug should go in. If you think about it, that's how you should. For safety reasons, probably it's really dangerous. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe it would be better than kids shoving knives into the socket and reversing the whole... But that's really what it is. Male and female. In the baby-making process, there is a male and there is a female. As in, there is an emitter and there is a receiver. The emitter gives that semen, that sperm, that nano, whatever, however much it weighs. And what does the female do? Receives and holds for 9 months. Hey, development, space, shapes. Pardon? And then emits. Correct. The hay doesn't hold on. The hay has openings. So it allows the baby, which is its own product, to come out. So it holds on and then releases. And you're going to see, this is why women are pretty cool. Wait till next week. You'll see how women are so cool. Men don't hold on. Men struggle with sentimentality. More so than women do. If I had to weigh up statistically, you'll find women that do and men that don't, but you'll find. That's why all these jokes about men, it's not because it's a minority of the case, it's because the majority of the case. He says that nature or nurture, men made to be like men and women made to be like women. I don't know, I'm not getting into that. It's not I'm explaining things from the Jewish spiritual. You have the inspirer and they have the inspired. There is a giver and there is a receiver. When we bring these things together, we get wholeness. When you bring an inspirer with an inspired, you get a wholeness. You get a shidduch. A shidduch is this working relationship of where there are the two entities and the magic that brings them together. You get the ko. Each one can discover ko. Each one can discover the infinite where? Only in a state of unification. Where does mankind ever experience ultimate bliss? In the peak state of intimacy. That's it. You're not going to get that feeling when you eat or you drink or you listen to music. Those are pleasurable experiences, but you're not going to get this blind pleasure. That tainug, it's called tainug, ta'anug. Ta'anug is a form of pleasure of where you're connecting with the innermost point of your soul. Now, what is the innermost point of your soul? I said yechidah. It's the point of oneness. Now, I'm not saying you're getting in touch with your yechidah, but technically you're getting closer to it. As you get closer to it, you start feeling a certain bliss. That bliss starts cutting beyond the mind, as in beyond consciousness. You're no longer thinking about it. You're no longer distanced from it. You are it. So where do you start experiencing singular entity? Deep within Tainug. Where does pleasure come from? When two things become one. So when you listen to music, when you eat the food, when you stare and behold the art, when you stare at the art and it becomes you. If you are deaf, you can't appreciate the music. If you're blind, you can't appreciate the art. If you have a cold, you can't appreciate the taste. If you are blocking the point of connection, you're not going to get the tainug. If you are in a point of hate, or you're in a point of even worse, if you're in a point of absolute disassociation, apathy towards another, there will be no pleasure. No pleasure. You can't have a pleasurable experience with that person when you don't really care for them or anything. It's like, you ever sat down on an airplane and you're about to fly to America? It's like going to be 16 hours. And some person sits next to you. It's like, hey, I'm that American that you really don't want to sit next to on a plane. Well, I'm just picking on because you know how Australians are about Americans. We don't. I'm going to be so valley and I'm going to be talking for the next 16 hours to you. And you talk to them. Was there any pleasure in it? No, you just, whatever. Are you from Melbourne? Oh, Melbourne! Yeah, Melbourne. Oh, is that where the bridge is? Yeah, we've got the West Gate, but you might be thinking of the Sydney Harbour. Suddenly you're the tour guide, you're a geography teacher, you're a history teacher, and if someone says, oh, how was the flight? Oh, I sat next to this girl. And she didn't shut up. And did you love it? No. So why did you talk? Was it pleasurable? No. You're engaging, but because you don't care for them, there's no tainug, there's no pleasure. So tainug is that point of connection. So when the masculine and the feminine energies unite in a selfless way, you get to a point of tainug. You get to a point of revelation of of the energy that is latent within but inaccessible when you're by yourself. Why is that? Because if you're an entity by yourself, if you're just by yourself, you can't access Ka. You're operating in Elohim. You're operating in the structure, but you're just a piece on the board. You're just a jigsaw piece. The jigsaw piece doesn't tell the story. The jigsaw piece doesn't really care for its own self. We're an egocentric jigsaw piece in that we don't really count by ourselves. We only count within the thing, but we're egocentric about it. That's the natural human position. Plants aren't like that, and rocks aren't like that, and animals aren't like that. Humans are like that. Rocks fall to the ground. I know it's called gravity. Everything falls to the ground, but just go with this. Rocks fall to the ground because the energy of the earth is earth. There are four primary energies. Fire, water, earth, air. The four primary, what did I say, 5 or 4? 4. I know in Eastern traditions you've got 5 because there's wood. But wood is part of earth in ours. So fire, water, air, and earth. Everything falls to the earth. Why? Because everything's source is offer. And so it goes to the closest clump of offer in order to unify with it. What doesn't? Fire. Because fire's source is not at all earth. It's got nothing to do with each other. And water moves up and down. As steam it moves up, condensation it moves down, because it tends towards one and the other, etc. Anyway, and air even more so. We are earth. We are earth. Adam. Adam, mankind. What's the root word? Adam, Aleph Dalet Mem, is the root of Adamah, of earth. Earth. Mankind comes from the earth. We are connected to the earth. And on earth there is no displacement. One rock can't exist in the place of another rock. We need to be our own self. The only time we allow displacement is in a state of marriage, in a state of love. Because in a state of love, you're saying, I'm nothing without you. You are one and you can displace me. You can take up my space as best as physics allows. You'll take up my space. You can take up my ego. In a true loving relationship, you're in public and your spouse, your partner makes a joke and everyone laughs. And you sit there going, I love how they love my spouse. I am happy. I always tell couples, what is true loving compromise? When Jim wants salad and Jane wants a steak, compromise is not let's go for pasta. It's when Jim says, we're going for steak, just so I can watch you eat that steak again because I love the smile on your face when you eat that steak. I am happy when you're happy. That means there's nothing to do with me. I'm not getting salad. I don't like steak. But what I like is you're being happy. It's not about me. Absolute displacement of the self. You can only achieve that with another. The ka, the yud and the hey, can only be found in the unification. What we're going to look at next week is the 10 Sefirot. The 10 Sefirot is the 10 energies that make up everything. And what we're going to notice is that within them there is both masculine and feminine. We are a makeup of the 10 Sefirot. So tonight we've really been talking about us as males, as females, as one or the other. But really you're going to start discovering that what makes us compatible with an other is the fact that we actually have the other in us. We are both masculine and feminine. Every one of us is both masculine and feminine. On a micro and a macro level. It's blatantly obvious and it's also very hard to notice. And you'll also notice that about everything in the world around us. Tonight was just about appreciating that it exists. Next week we're going to start looking for it everywhere and we're going to see it everywhere as we explore the 10 Sefirot as masculine and feminine energies. All right, I'll see you next week.